everyone, welcome back to Strange Minds 6. I'm your host Ruby, and today we are going to be getting back into the Book of the Bizarre, Freaky Facts and Strange Stories by Varla Ventura. And where we last left off was at the end of chapter 9. So we are going to begin chapter 10, and it's called Passing Strange, Aberrations, Fascinating Phobias, and Odd Ancient Beliefs. But before we begin, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It would mean a great deal to me if you do. And without further ado, my dear friends, grab a snack, grab a drink, or sit back and relax. And let's get to it. Faces only a mother could love. Creo was a wild child who lived in Europe in the 1880s, sometimes known as Darwin's missing link. She sported a prognathic face, one where the lower jaw extends beyond the upper part of the face, and her head and face were covered with a thick mane of hair down to the neck. Creo was first put on exhibit in a freak show when she was just 7 years old. She was known for throwing temper tantrums, during which she would writhe on the ground and attempt to pull the hair out of her face. Jojo, the dog-faced boy, was an early 1900s freak show performer who was said to have been captured in the forest of Russia, where he had been living off berries and small animals in imitation of his neighbors, the wolves. In reality, he was just a very hairy boy, like his father, who was exhibited as a dog-faced man. Both father and son had thick, sandy-colored hair growing in tufts all over their faces. They were said to resemble terriers, and had mastered a very convincing barking routine. The hirsuti, Creo, and Jojo may have suffered from a rare genetic disorder called congenital hypertrichosis. People afflicted with this condition, of which there are only about 50 documented cases since the Middle Ages, are covered head to toe with hair. Maximum mass. Roman Emperor Maximus was the legendary king who was so large that he could wear his wife's bracelet as a wedding ring. Wow. He was said to be between 8 and 9 feet tall and was a compulsive eater, binging on 4 pounds of flesh and 6 gallons of wine a day. He was as much muscle as he was fat, though, as he was known to be capable of knocking out the teeth of a horse with a single blow. I have 3 phobias. Which, could I mute them, would make my life as slick as a sonnet but as dull as a ditch water. I hate to go to bed, I hate to get up, and I hate to be alone. Tallulah Bankhead. Choreomania. At various times in different countries, actual epidemics of dancing mania have occurred. In the 14th and 15th centuries, these epidemics were especially common in Western Germany. They would begin in an isolated community and in a short time would spread over a wide area. Soon, whole communities across wide areas would be engaging in frenzied dancing. Mom, I feel sick. This is going to be a long word, so bear with me if I get this wrong. Scolionophobia is an extreme fear and hatred of school. Don't jump. If you have a fear of falling from a height to your death, you have a mild version of pathophobia. This is not an uncommon fear, but the manic phobia manifests in a fear of not being able to control an impulse to jump from a high place. Doctor, I'm not well. If you were really craving a drink during Prohibition, there was a clause in the 18th Amendment that allowed for you to use alcohol for medicinal purposes. Medicines that contained alcohol were prescribed for any number of illnesses. Scary hair. Katharine Hepburn suffered from a phobia of dirty hair. When she was shooting films with 20th Century Fox, she would sniff the heads of the cast and crew to make sure their hair was squeaky clean. Xenoglossia. Xenoglossia is the act of spontaneously speaking in a strange or foreign language without having learned it or having been exposed to it, but with the added implication of extreme revulsion or distaste to this linguistic act. The ability to speak in a foreign tongue may be an evidence for reincarnation and may occur when a person is reliving a past life. The linguistic act sometimes can be as simple as a few words or phrases, or in some instances, an entire fluent conversation being carried out in a language the person is not even aware exists. In some of the most credible and compelling cases of xenoglossia recorded, the subject not only spoke in a foreign language, but also used an archaic version of it that had not been in regular usage for centuries, making it extremely unlikely that the ability was a fantasy or a hoax. Delusions, manias, and phobias. Erotographomania is the overwhelming drive to write love letters. Echolalia is the senseless repetition of words or sounds. Litigophobia is the fear of lawsuits. Thanatomania is a neurotic obsession with attending funerals and reading obituaries. Cachinnation is senseless laughter as found in manic depression and certain types of schizophrenia. Thanatophobia is a morbid fear of death. If you experience a morbid fear of darkness, you are nyctophobic. Nosophobia is a fear of illness. Mysophobia is the irrational fear of dirt and germs. Mysophobics usually spend an inordinate amount of time washing their hands, and many have trouble leaving the house. If you have an unreasonable fear of experiencing pain, you are algophobic. Theomania is a morbid fear of religious cults. If you believe you have been transformed into a wolf, you are suffering from the delusion of lycanthropy. Ophidiophobia is the fear of snakes and snake-like creatures. Erythrophobia is the morbid fear of blushing. Alcoholomania is an irresistible craving for alcoholic drinks, while lithomania is a morbid craving for drugs. Eisotrophobia is the excessive fear of mirrors. Yeah, I don't like to hang mirrors around my room. I have one mirror that I use to get ready with, and that's it. Taphiophobia is a morbid fear of being buried alive. Ugh. No. Anaphia is the loss of the sense of pressure. Cacophobia is the fear of ugliness. People with this phobia tend to avoid ugly people and asymmetrical objects. The impulse to disrobe in public is known as asceticism. Arithmophobia is the fear of numbers. Sufferers of this condition often have trouble with their finances, reading simple traffic signs, and understanding pricing system at stores. Personal paralysis. Abasia is a loss of the power to walk when there are no structural or organic changes to account for the inability to move. Abasiac individuals are utterly convinced that they are not capable of movement, and that if they attempt to walk, something terrible is going to happen to them or to someone around them. Bless me, Father. A person suffering from agonia experiences extreme grief due to delusions of having committed the original sin. Fall from grace. Basophobia is the fear of standing up or attempting to walk, stemming mainly from a fear that one will then fall. Quivering thunder. The extreme dread of thunder is called brontophobia. For brontophobes, the boom and crash of thunder has a demonic quality. often found in people suffering from a psychoneurosis. Brontophobia can also be associated with a person, often a person in a position of authority, and the fearsome thunder is their expression of disapproval. Conspiracy of beards. Pogonophobia is the fear of beards. Too much echo. Xenophobia is primarily a morbid fear of empty rooms, but also encompasses a fear of large halls, auditorium, and edifices with high ceilings. Melon heads. Many lifelong residents of Kirkland, Ohio, grew up listening to the tales of melonheads, a strange race of local mutants. Local legend has it that these people, known for their oversized, bulbous craniums, are the result of a physician's bizarre experiments on children suffering from the debilitating disease called hydrocephalus. This condition causes large pockets of water to form in the brain, and Dr. Crow was hired by the U.S. government to investigate and care for the children with the disorder. Instead, he performed twisted operations on his patients, injecting their brains with more water and exposing them to radiation. Many children died, and the remaining victims mutated into wild, vicious creatures. One day, they attacked the doctor, ripped him to pieces, and ate him. Then they unleashed themselves on the woods around the crude hospital they had been imprisoned in. The story goes that the melonheads roam the woods in packs, terrorizing humans and animals alike. The number 13. Triskaideka phobia is a morbid fear of the number 13 or the date Friday the 13th. In early Christianity, the number 13 was considered unlucky because it was the number of persons presented at the Last Supper, and Friday unlucky because Christ was said to have been crucified on a Friday. Chapter 11. The Vapors. Medical maladies and curious cures is where we are going to leave off, my dear friends. Tune in next video to hear more about Chapter 11. This has been Ruby, signing off, and as always, my dear friends, may you have a wonderful morning, noon, or night whenever this video reaches you. Bye-bye.